Namaste. Welcome to our today's program. We have a very special guest here today with us, Arzan Upadhyay. What's so special about him? Well, among many, the one that stands out the most and about which we are going to talk about here today is his first book, titled Derp, The Bad Luck Streak, that he published at a young age of 13. How is that so special, in case some of you are wondering? So how many of us aspire to write a book? Most of us, I believe. Well, I can speak for myself, I do. Statistically, more than 80% of Americans think they have a book in them. Of those, only 5% end up even attempting to write, and 70% of them never complete it. So that leaves us about 0.1% who actually end up completing a book, writing a book, that is, let alone publishing it. Because publishing is a whole different ballgame. So now if we look at a subset of that group into how many children publish a book, that number gets really, really small. So small that there is no statistics found on published children authors. And an average age of a published writer is 36. So that gives us an idea into how incredibly extraordinary Arzan's achievement is. With that said, let me introduce Arzan to you all. Arzan, welcome to our program.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. So Arzan is 15 now, and he's in 10th grade. He loves playing video game, just like most boys his age, and loves swimming, traveling, and dining out. He also loves playing with his dog, Duster, and teasing his younger sister. Arzan doesn't particularly like getting attention or talking about himself, so this is not easy for him to do. But I would like to commend him for taking the challenge and coming out here today to share his experience of writing his first book with us. So with that said, Arzan, I would like to ask you my first question. What inspired you to write the book? Can you share with us the journey until the day you seriously sat down to write?
Well, to be honest, I initially did not plan to write a book. The idea was more my father's idea because back in fifth grade, I did not have the best habits. I used to play on my iPad a lot. I had terrible time management, and I wasn't paying too much attention to school. So my dad came up with the idea that I needed to focus my mind on something educational. And then he proposed the idea of writing. And at that point, like my childish mind, I had so many like funny ideas I always wanted to write out, see how they play out. So I began to like experiment with them, short stories, poetry, long stories. And eventually I began sitting down and writing on a collected work, and it started accumulating. And over the years, I just started building up pages, forming a cohesive story, pulling it all together. And eventually that turned into my book.
Well, you already sound like a professional, a discipline, that most adults cannot pride on. I can't. I have been wanting to write, for a long, long time. I think I have a writer in me. My birth given name is Lekika, which means authoress, but that hasn't helped. So for me, I know you make it easy, sound very, very easy, but it's an incredibly tough thing to accomplish, right? So I would like you to share, where did you get the idea from? Is there any real life parallel to you, to it? And eventually next question will be your struggles in getting it completed. So
Oh,
let's talk about idea first.
well, I drew my ideas from a lot of sources. Some of it came from my own personal life. Like in the book, there are references to bullying, being unable to fit in. I kind of went through that in elementary school. I was a bit social. I had a bit of social anxiety. It was difficult for me to like talk to people in elementary school. So I tried to incorporate that into my book so maybe other people could relate to it. And then some of the themes, I took those from other books I was reading at the time, like books aimed at elementary schoolers, like Captain Underpants, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, all the stuff that you'd see middle schoolers, elementary schoolers reading. I had those books in mind when I wrote mine. I took inspiration from them, basically.
Incredible. I know those books are, I have two boys and those are in their, book racks all the time. My younger one especially likes to sleep, reading those books, go to sleep reading those books. So And I could see the resemblance, in your story writing, the illustration and all that, with those books. And those are very, very popular book, and I think yours should be as well. And I hope this program, will help accomplish that to a certain extent. Um, so what were your struggles? I know it was like a 2-year journey for you. Can you take us through your journey? Um, Tell us about your struggles. Tell us about your triumphs. Um,
Yeah, well, writing the book, it wasn't exactly a straight line. It had ups and downs. I couldn't bring myself to be motivated the whole time. Like there were some periods of time where I couldn't write a single page. I just get too bored. I wasn't interested. I didn't feel like it. Sometimes this would go on for a few months. And having the discipline to sit down, put my head to work, actually type stuff out, that was pretty difficult for me. And that's one of the reasons why it took so long. That was one of the main struggles. Another struggle was finding an illustrator. We had to like go on Fiverr. We had to look up people who had the artistic talent to do so. And it was hard choosing an art style because I couldn't tell if I wanted it to be like detailed or if I wanted it to be like simple and easy for people to understand. But eventually we settled on the simple one.
yeah, I love those illustration. Actually, that was one of my favorite thing about the book. Done really, really well. Um, so I know I talked to your parents a little bit, just wanting to get to know you better through your parents. And he did talk about how he had to put a discipline of writing 30 minutes every day, and when, it doesn't sound like much, but over time, that 30 minutes over the course of two years, I believe, right? When you started around 11, and I think you completed the book when you were 13. So when you started writing 30 minutes every day, at the end of the 2 year, you had something substantial to make it into a book, right? How do you, I mean, now it's easier said than done, to find that continuity, every day on your story, writing 30 minutes. Because when I sit down to write 30 minutes, I'm a kind of person who, when I write hours at a time, and then I'll probably not write for days at a time because I'm not disciplined enough to sit down for, 30 minutes every day. What was the experience? What was it like? I mean, were you able to do 30 minutes every day as your dad asked you to? Or did you find yourself, I mean, kind of doing as you pleased?
Well, whenever I wrote in like long chunks. Like I'd write 30 minutes every day for like 2 weeks. It wouldn't be like spotty, like 30 minutes one day, 30 minutes another day, because I had to build off of what I had just written. So if I didn't have it all connected, if I didn't have my writing times flowing together, I'd have to reread what I wrote to make sure the following pieces fit better in the story. So it was really difficult to keep going the 30 minutes each day. But when I got in the groove, I started getting used to it and it became much easier. And this happened like later into my writing experience, not at the start.
So what was start like then? I mean, how did you struggle during the start?
Oh, the start, it was terrible. Like there were some weeks I would write like maybe 6, 7, 8 pages, and other weeks I wouldn't write at all. And it
Mm.
was just a hassle. My dad had to like force me to write. At one point, he like had to take away my phone to get me to write. It was terrible. But
Yeah.
yeah, as I kept writing, I got more and more invested, so it became easier as time went on.
So tell me, your story is incredible. It ties up really well together. Your chapters, there's a progression to it. So did you stick to the original story idea? Did it keep changing? Uh, you know, did you have all the idea from the beginning, or did it evolve as you kept writing? How was it like?
So when I started, I had like a basic outline of how I wanted the story to go. I wanted this to happen, this to happen, this to happen in that order. But as I started writing, I realized I wanted the plot to be a little different. So as I went along, I made minor adaptations. The story evolved a bit. I wanted it to go beyond what I had initially planned. So yeah, I had to make a few changes to my basic outline.
What about the characters? Did you have original characters, as or did they new people came in as you developed more stories? Is there any resemblance? Did you look at real life people and drew your character out of them? What was it like, or is it all your imagination going wild?
Well, for the characters, I had like the main characters and the main villains planned out. But the side comedic characters, I added them in as the story went on to give it more flavor. And for their inspirations, some of them are based off real people. Some of them are just based off funny wording, funny phrases that I thought were hilarious. And there isn't really much backstory to any of them. I just went along and developed them how I felt like making them.
Well, then you did a wonderful job because they do sound very real life, you know.
Thank you.
Like I love the especially the names you gave them. Very funny, you know. Sometimes kind of I would say anti-stereotypical because you have this Asian guy, you know, who never what he cheated in all his exam, which
Yeah.
just doesn't sound, you know, exactly, you know, Asian, because Asians are usually very well in their academics, right? And there are a couple other things that I noticed that you deliberately try to keep it anti stereotype. Was that true?
Yeah, it was like breaking the mold a bit.
Yeah. And I really like that about this books too, because I think it's easy to go by the stereotype, you know. But that's one thing I really like about your book. That's original. Um, and so tell us about the process, you know. This It's one thing to write a book, another thing to edit it, polish it, complete it, and then the process of publishing it, right? A lot of us have no clue. If I know there are a lot of aspiring writers out there, so if you could share us the experience of how did you go from completing the story to getting it published.
Yeah, so first I had my dad read through all of it. He was like the first layer of checking the book. Then I had to go through like a grammar checking website. And then after that, we hired a professional editor. They read through it, they caught all the errors they could. And then after that, once we finally had gone through 3 layers, we sent it to a publisher, Amazon. So Amazon publicated it and they print the copies. So they made it easy to distribute it.
Great. And I know you're also on Barnes and Noble. Was the process similar to Barnes and Noble as well, or did you have there was any extra steps?
To Barnes and Noble, I think we just had to like supply them with the book and they could just distribute it for us.
Wonderful. And I know there is, you also have Audible version. I'm sure there's another extra process in that. How did you end up finding the person to do the voice? I think I would have preferred to hear from you. I think that would have added even extra flavor to the story. But I do like the person who did the voice for the story. What was that experience like?
So we had to find a voice actor. We had to go on Fiverr. We had to look around for voice actors. And we actually experimented a bit. We like hired a few to read a few voice clips. And then we read through them. We filtered out the ones we didn't like. And eventually we picked out the guy we thought would be the best fit, the best representation of what we want the story to sound like. And we got him to read our lines.
Did you ever consider you doing it yourself?
Oh no, I'm not talented in voice acting.
No, I think you are. I think you're not giving yourself enough credit. I would like to challenge you today to read a chapter for our viewers, right? In a bit, in a little bit. Um, so I do have a lot of questions. I've not fully read your book yet. I am like halfway there, so I don't know what happens. But I love the idea of middle school, the bullies, and I wanted to ask you about bullies. I know bullies are not as predominant experience nowadays in schools because they have taken a lot of measures to um, take care of that. But I know a lot of these bullyings happen at a very subtle level, and maybe this it doesn't get reported, but probably still experienced. Was it your personal experience? Have you experienced being bullied?
Yeah, when I was in elementary school, I was very short. I was like 4 or 5 inches shorter than everyone else. So my bullying, it wasn't too direct. It was like backhanded insults, like "Oh, you're so short. Oh, you're so small," stuff like that. It wasn't big enough to make me feel terrible, but I still felt kind of bad after each insult,
Mm,
and it kind of has affected my self-esteem a bit. And I try to reflect that in my book
mm.
about
You,
bullying.
you've done a wonderful job with that. And you come, but the character comes across very confident, being able to speak for himself and have a very smart comment, ready in his back pocket. Uh, does that emulate, how you are like?
Well, yeah, it emulates what I wish I was like in elementary school, like what the ideal me would have been like back then.
I love how articulate you are. Even as you're answering my questions, obviously, you have a lot of maturity for your age and intelligence. I mean, I commend you for help. I mean, working on growing yourself. I think it's an inspiration to a lot of kids. What other activities or real life experience has helped you shape into the person you are today, the way you articulate yourself, or the way you discipline yourself? I know it's difficult for all the kids to discipline themselves, but but you still push yourself to do it, right? And what advice do you give to other kids in how to bring about accomplishing something important in their life?
Well, the number one advice I'd give to people is to start immediately. If I wasn't pressured to start the book, I never would have started it. I never would have finished it. I never would have gotten the book that I have today. And the best thing you can do is start, even if you're not confident in yourself. As long as you start, you can build off of it. You learn from your mistakes, you improve, and you will eventually get to the place you want to be.
So basically, the most important step is just getting it started, right? It's the initial inertia I think we all struggle with. And once you go on the path, it'll kind of help you figure it out yourself, right? Itself, right? And my other question was, what other activities have helped you, being creative, being articulate, being disciplined? Is there anything that you've done that you feel like helped shape yourself?
It's definitely the public speaking opportunities. Like in elementary school, I got the option to do a public speaking speech at our graduation ceremony. That helped up my self confidence. It helped me get better with my words, helped me learn how to speak to a large group of people without getting nervous. And basically, every public speaking opportunity I got, I would take it because it was a valuable experience.
Like here today.
Yep, like here
Right.
today.
That is one of our goal in Disticon, to give young people the opportunity to speak in front of people. And I think I agree with you. It's one of the fear that most people have, and it can only be dealt with by actually facing it, right? And thank you for that advice, because that helps our platform to give some value to what we do. Um, so I think I've covered a lot of questions. You've answered a lot of it. And, I really appreciate that you're here with us today. Um, Before, the last few questions, I would like you to, read your favorite chapter from your book, so that, our viewers can get a flavor of what the story is all about.
Yep.
Don't mind?
Let me get the book. I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Okay. As you can see, my viewers, that he's wonderful, isn't it? We got a lot to learn from him, and I'm excited to hear his favorite chapter. Here he is back.
Let me see. There's a lot. Okay, my favorite chapter is probably chapter 16, the part where they're all in the office and signing up for the election, because this is like leading into the next big plot point.
Interestingly, I finished chapter 15 and I am on chapter 16, haven't read it. So perfect.
So, should I start?
Yes.
Yeah. Next week, I went up to Mr. Carpo's office and signed up for the election. Some other people signed up too. I was looking through the list when I saw a name that caught my eye: Rick Nibbler. Oh no, I exclaimed. Why wasn't Patrick running, I wondered. Then I realized that Patrick had been suspended the week before. Anyone who got suspended was prohibited from running for any student government positions. So I knew Patrick had encouraged Rick to run. If Rick got elected, he would be Patrick's puppet, and Rick could get power over the whole school. Now I felt like I had to win. When I got home, I started making posters with funny catchphrases. My favorite one was, like a good neighbor, this dirt guy is here. The next day, I went to school and hung my posters. Rick's posters were trash. One said, vote for me. If you don't, I will make you so scared you will pee. I took one look at the poster and started laughing like crazy. If this was his poster, I couldn't wait to hear his speech. That put me in a good mood. I went skipping along to my homeroom. In the middle of a lesson about geometry, our teacher had to go to the bathroom, leaving the class alone. As soon as she left, Patrick marched up to the front of the class. I have an announcement, he blared. Anyone who does not vote for Rick Nibbler will be wedgied so hard they'll fly all the way to Canada. If it had been anyone else, we all would have thought he was bonkers. But when Patrick said it, everyone believed him. Patrick rushed back to his desk just as our teacher got back. Has anyone caused any trouble while I was gone? She asked. Scared of getting slung to Canada, no one said a word. 3 people were running for student council president: Rick, an 8th grade girl named Pickle Bush, and me. Pickle was short, red haired, and chubby. She was in the book club and on the swim team. I heard she could read 2,000 words per minute, and that meant she was smart. She cried when our team lost the Battle of the Books tournament to a neighboring charter school. She didn't like losing, which made her a fierce competitor. The following day, someone had defaced all my student government campaign posters. On one, they'd used a Sharpie pen to make my nose long like Pinocchio's, then wrote liar underneath the picture. Pickle's posters had been torn. I suspected Rick and Patrick were responsible. When I looked for them, I learned they were both absent. But if they were absent, then who had defaced and torn our posters? Who else didn't want Pickle or me to win? Could it be Romance or Wong Hung Lo? To my surprise, they were absent too. Pickle and I went to Mr. Carpo to complain. The good thing is that we have the camera. Let's find out who did it, said Mr. Carpo. He tapped the instructions, watched his monitor, and then said, This is not good. What's the problem, Mr. Carpo? Asked Pickle. This morning, the camera was turned off an hour before it came to the office, he replied. You mean someone came to your office, turned off the camera, then vandalized the campaign posters, and turned the camera back on, I asked? Looks like it. Only staffers are allowed in my office when I'm not here. We all looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Let me investigate this, said Mr. Carpo. You guys can leave now. And that's it.
That's wonderful. Politics at such young age, right? We
Yeah.
all want to win, and we all, do our own in our own ways. Try to do our thing to make our case stronger.
Yeah.
I'm very looking forward to reading the next chapter and what unfolds. Um, so, um, what were your inspiration on the negative characters?
Negative
Do
characters?
you
Well,
find yourself, I mean, some of it, in yourself as well? Because I know we all have your, blend of good and bads.
yeah, I projected a bit of my negative traits onto the negative characters. Like the girl I just talked about, Pickle Bush, she's overly competitive, too analyzing. I feel like that's a bit of me, so I put that in her. Sometimes I put like Wang Hong Lo, he's not the brightest. He's sometimes a bit dense. He's a bit oblivious. And that can be me sometimes, so I try to put that in him.
That's wonderful. I like that. I know you're a very bright kid. When I talked to your dad, he was just so, so proud, incredibly proud. You were even, put it, in a gifted program from you when you were young. So you're definitely not a dense child, but to be able to see ourselves, uh, in a not so, I guess, positive light, I think keeps us grounded. And I like that really a lot about you. And I think this book also speaks for itself in how incredibly balanced and level-headed person you are. Because unless you have to, any writer has to have that all sorts of facets in them to be able to relate to other characters, to be able to bring story to life, you have to be observant, you have to be very detailed, so it's an incredible experience. I think it's a experience of self exploration. You learned probably a lot about yourself through writing a book, right? The book, right? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, when I was writing the book, writing each character, I had to assign them personality traits. And I often had to like draw these personality traits from my own pool of personality traits. And as I was writing, I like tried to find ways to compare myself to the characters, maybe make some parallels between us, maybe make some sharp contrasts. I like try to inject a bit of myself into each character in some way.
Did you find yourself that you learned a lot more about yourself through the experience?
Yeah, I mean it was brutally
Self
honest,
reflection. Yeah,
but I had to learn a bit about myself in order to write about myself. So yeah, I definitely learned a lot.
I would say so. Um, So, there are other characters. I know this is just not about school. There are aliens in the book. Where did you get the idea of, injecting them? Obviously, you needed some superpowers, in your characters, and probably that's where the idea of aliens were
Yeah.
introduced. I like that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I thought superpowers and aliens kind of go hand in hand. They're like peanut butter and jelly. You can't have one without the other. And
Because we humans are not, we don't have superpowers, so there has to be something external.
yeah, there has to be some kind of explanation for them. I want to tie them all together at some point. Like maybe in a future book, you can have them all connect back to each other. But that's for another day.
Cool. And what about the family members? You brought a lot of interesting characters. It's not just about middle school. You also have a lot of family dynamic there, interesting uncles and aunts. Talk to me about a little bit about that.
Well, the family members are from some of my relatives. Some of their personalities, some of their jokes, I try to include them in this book. I didn't want to make it too realistic, so I just put a little trace of them there, but they're still recognizable.
So have they read and have they said that, oh, I see that, myself in there?
But yeah, a few people have said that like they can kind of compare themselves to the characters, and they asked me if I was like thinking about them when I was writing it.
They probably felt special.
Yeah,
Good. Um, and so now next phase so you got your book published. I think the hardest probably phase is the marketing phase. You can do incredible, put a lot of your hard work, do your, everything to publish a book, but then marketing is a whole another ball game. And I know your book has done well, but probably could I address that in my next section, could do better. What has the marketing experience been like?
yeah. So when I published the book, I was 13. I didn't really have much social media. I couldn't do much marketing. But what I did was I told my friends at school, and my dad, he actually got the principal to make an announcement about it. So that was one way we marketed. My parents, they put it on their social media, and their friends shared it, and it was kind of like a chain of shares. But overall, the marketing didn't go too well. That was one of the most disappointing parts. It's something I'd do better in the future if I ever write a book again. Yeah.
And I agree with that, absolutely agree with that. So here's my spill, okay? In an effort to help you out, I think we all agree that Arjun has accomplished something we all should celebrate along with him and his family. After all, a community has a certain responsibility towards its fellow members. And we Nepalis do it well. We take a lot of pride in fellow Nepalis' accomplishments, especially on an international platform. We've always come together to support our fellow Nepalis, help them win international contests. Unfortunately, book writing is not a contest by any means and does not have any international platform to ask for support. And self promotion and marketing isn't quite our strength either. So, Arjun's book, Derp, The Bad Luck Streak, has done well, but perhaps not as well as it should. Knowing how good the story is and how well it is written, it needs to do much, much better. And here is our opportunity to show our pride and support to our incredibly talented fellow Nepali Arjun. Um, and here it is something that you can do to help him. To start with, please share this video and spread the word. Read the book and recommend it to your friends and family. I'm going to put the link with this video. Give an honest and encouraging review on Amazon. If you own any media platform, including a personal blog, do a review on his book and share it with your followers. Invite him to talk to him. If you are in elementary or middle school, recommend it to your teacher to have it included on the list of books they can read. After all, how many children's books are out there written by children, right? So these are very small steps you can do, but it can make a huge impact if enough of us do it. Okay, so I recommend, I request you to do this as a part of our community effort. And this is an interesting bit, okay? I learned from your mother that you have a connection, very direct connection to our national treasure, our poet, Lakshmi Prasad Devkota. He was your great grandfather, isn't it?
Granduncle.
Granduncle, yes, same grandfather. So we have a little common, commonality there. Okay, it's funny. We all like to make connection with the great figures in history, right? So here's the interesting part. So when we first moved to Kathmandu, one of our first places that we rented was a house that was that Lakshmi Prasad Devkota was born in. So I have a little poet in me, a little, I think I have a little writer in me. Maybe that's where I get it from. You have a genes directly related to him, but at least through my association there, sharing the same house, I think I probably got a little bit of his blessings as well. I would like to believe in future I would like to call, to see myself as a published writer as well. um, so it has been an incredible chat, last 30 minutes with you. I wish you all the luck. I hope this little interview helps you boost your book sales a little bit. I know it's been 2 years since we published the book, but then it's never too late. And with that, I wish you luck, and also tell our viewers where they can find the book, and also when can we see your next book.
Okay. So you can find the book on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles. Amazon, you can order it online. Barnes and Noble, some stores carry the book. And my next book, I'm probably gonna write another book maybe after college, because right now I'm focusing on my studies and I want to get into college first before I take up another long project like this one.
Incredible. And his book title is Durp, DURP, just like burp. Okay, the bad luck streak. So you can easily search it on Amazon, and I'm gonna put it on the video as well as a link. So thank you, Arjun, for being here with us today. And again, I wish you luck. And also tell your friends and family about our platform, so that we can do more of these programs in the future and help incredible talents like you to get promoted. All right.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.